path of Bhakti Yoga is probably the simplest and the most convenient form of yoga of the three kinds of yogas that can be done: Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Dhyan Yoga. All the three yogas lead to the same goal of knowledge, true perfection, and God realization, which can be termed as Gyan Yoga. And when one attains Gyan Yoga, because Krishna says that's the highest form of the yoga of all the three or four forms, one develops samdarshita, which is outlook that everybody in the world is equal. And that's the major distinction between sattva and rajas. Rajas tries to bifurcate and distinguish and split to get the information, very much like science, the classification. Whereas sattva, it does more of the yunj or the union. So it sees things as one. You know the debate between lumpers and splitters. So sattva is lumper and rajas is splitter. Nothing wrong with either of those two approaches, it's just that they lead to different goals. So Bhakti Yoga, by saying that I am nothing, sense of surrender to the higher being, gets rid of the Atman Moiti. So it's kind of a lumper, and that's why it's very sattvic in its approach. In Bhakti Yoga, an individual surrenders to the higher being. Buddhihin tanu jaan ke sumiro pavan kumar, bal buddhi buddhya dehu mehe harhu kales vikar. So he talks about bal, buddhi, vidya in Hanuman Chalisa. So vidya is gyan and buddhi is intellect. So you're trying to ask that by doing Bhakti Yoga, you get the right buddhi or the intellect. Because as you know, of the three faculties, senses, mind, and intellect, the highest is the intellect. However, even the intellect can get deluded at times of destruction. Vinasha kale viparit buddhi. So you cannot even rely on intellect all the time. All we can do is buff and shine senses, mind, and intellect, more so intellect, because that's the highest power that we have. And the more we practice abhyasa, constant repetition of the sattvic practices, and vairagya, constant castigation of the rajasic and tamasic practices leading to the devolution of the soul, the more likely we are to ascend in the spiritual path. So Bhakti Yoga removes ego. Ego is the whole cause of focusing on the self, disregarding the others, leading to delusion. And the more you have ego, it can develop as attachment to the self or narcissism, or it can develop as a sense of superiority of the self over others, which again is an aspect of narcissism, but constant disregard for the safety and protection of others. And that leads to a psychopath tendencies. And it's very important to not take advantage of others or individuals or species that are weaker, smaller, feebler than we are, whether it be the animal kingdom in terms of meat consumption or torture of animals or subjugation of the rights of individuals who are weaker, poorer than who we are. So samdarshita, vidya vinay sampanne brahmane gavi hastini shuni chav shapaka samdarsita. That thing tells us that one person, when he has vidya and vinay, which is knowledge and humility, he will have samdarshita. He will see gold, a piece of rock, everything in the same vision. And that equanimity and more so I should say balance of seeing everything as single and same is very important to understand the rights of others and not to disregard and disrespect their rights over ours. So Bhakti Yoga creates that platform through which we can dissolve the ego and the delusion. Both of them are leading to ignorance. And once you surrender to God through the modes of chanting and prayers, we are opening our receptors. Our antenna is being turned towards God, and now we are only waiting for Bhagavad Kripa to happen. The day our moh is totally dissolved from the sensual gratification and is fixated on God, then, as Krishna says repeatedly, yam yam yapi smaran bhav tejante kalevram tam tame vaiti kante sadbhav bhavita. Whatever thoughts come to your mind in the time of death, that is what you will attain in next life. Mai asakt mana parth yogam yunja mudashaya. Mai asakt mana. You come asakti or attachment. Put your attachment in me, undivided attention in me, and not in these objects of sensual gratification, which are subjected to the sensual rule of happiness, sadness, attachment, and aversion. So the aversion and the misery part of sensual gratification, which is because it's a rajasic or a tamasic force, is always there, because things in Prakriti are subject to change. Change is a law of nature. Whereas in the spiritual world, there is no change. There is no manifestation. That's why it's constant state of bliss, uninterrupted, because there is not a clock to kind of determine that there is a change in the activities. Hence, it is bliss, not just happiness that one gets. And you will get a speckle of bliss if you go into Bhakti Yoga through chanting, no matter what songs you listen to, Hanuman Chalisa, or whatever other songs you listen to. There will be that component of slow build-up of happiness, approaching bliss. Over time, it's going to take several years, and it only comes in certain moments and leaves you, because it's just like samadhi, you cannot remain there all the time, because we are not perfect human beings. So you can go in dharana, you can go in dhyana, but to remain in samadhi is only Ramakrishna Paramhans can do that. So we can get speckle of bliss when we are submerging ourselves in this bhakti yoga. And the best way, easiest way, is to recruit the senses, the sense of hearing and the karmendriya of singing. Thereby you are engaging, because you have created a purpose for yourself. Remember, purpose and happiness, those two things are antidotes for boredom and distress. And boredom and distress is what leads to sensual gravitation and leading to searching the Vishayas, whereas Vishayas never bring happiness. Vishya vinivartante nirasya deina rasvajam rasopasya paramdishta nivarte. By constant abnegation of Vishayas, one is not going to attain happiness either. You have to say that I can get it, but I don't want it. If you have that mindset, then there is no sense of yearning, because yearning happens when you intensely crave for something that you cannot attain. Whereas here, the mindset is, I can have it. I have the resources, the financial ability, and structural ability in my body to attain or perform certain activities if I want to, but I choose not to, because vairagya. Then you castigate. What are the things wrong with it? If it's sex, it leads to loss of energy, loss of oja. If it is food, overeating leads to obesity. It leads to metabolic derangements and lassitude and loss of impulse, inertia. So that kind of, if you can create rationalization and constant repetition in the mind every morning in Brahma Muhurat, in your Dhyana Yoga, you are not only doing affirmation, belief, visualization, picturization of God, but also you are castigating all the wrong things, smoking, alcohol, gaming, gambling, drinking. If you can do that on a regular basis, any of your vices that you want to get rid of, you picturize yourself doing it and then say, what a fool I have made of myself. Why am I doing this? There's nothing that comes out fruitful long term in this activity. And if you can do that even for 2 minutes, even if you don't believe in it, slowly your neuronal networks will start believing in it. And that is the power of Bhakti Yoga. It rechannels your neuronal networks, and slowly all those vasanas and the vices will only appear in your dreams. And then that's when they appear in the dreams, it's the subconscious trying to show the conscious what the contents of the subconscious are. That is what dreams are. And when they show up in the dreams, we know that the vasanas are still there, but at the same time we know they are yearning. they're dying, they are getting weakened. And that is the emaciated state of the vasana, the last flicker trying to attract the consciousness towards itself. And if the consciousness still does vairagya to the vasana, then the vasana has died in the end eventually. And that's why we have to understand that the conscious mind is totally dependent upon the gunas that we come in contact with, because those are the vritti waves or the thought processes we generate and the attachments therefore, whether to the god or to the girls. And then once you have attained that, you have primed the subconscious, you have changed the subconscious. So the conscious changes the subconscious, and the subconscious itself, samskaras or vasanas as we call it, which have been accrued over several lifetimes, including past experiences of this life, are themselves subject to malleability and change by the conscious. If you do not bring them out from the subconscious, they will slowly disintegrate and die, and they are gone. So they don't remain in a weakness or your point of Achilles heel anymore. So my friends, Bhakti Yoga is the powerful yet convenient pathway of God realization in which an individual does activities of prayers and chanting, and thereby he is giving himself a purpose of singing and enjoying, because it's a sensual gratification that one gets from music. So constant practice of Bhakti Yoga, when you are working, doing any activity or sitting in dhyana, you can play some music in the background, is slowly, insidiously rechanneling your neuronal pathway, and therefore it is wiping off the older samskaras and creating a new imprint of samskaras. In place of vasanas and vyasan, you are getting good samskaras of God belief and God realization. So that way, because there is change and you have provided purpose and happiness, you have killed the boredom and distress, and hence the senses are kind of reset into a better way to operate in God realization and therefore liberation. Thank you.